I guess let's talk about ethical reasons to shoot your dog in a grave pit. You probably heard the story about South Dakota governor who wrote a book, and in this book she told the story how she had this 1-year-old puppy, and puppy did some mischief, so she had to kill the puppy. And no, she didn't go to the vet to put the dog down. She actually went to the backyard or wherever she went, to the gravel pit, and she shot the dog herself. There is also another part of the story where she also decided to kill the goat that was a trouble, but let's only focus on the dog today. Also, this story is really nuanced. There are like more and more details resurfacing every day, and at this point it doesn't matter for this particular video because I just want to discuss it from the standpoint of pet professional, what should be done in case somebody else facing the same situation, or in case you're just wondering what should she have done instead, what were her options. And yes, nice to meet you. My name is Stella. I'm a professional dog trainer in San Francisco Bay Area. Some of the important parts of the story: the dog is 14 months old, which is a little bit over a year. So it's still a puppy because it's a medium to large breed. It's a German wire-haired pointer. And those dogs are bred primarily for hunting, but of course they can also be pets. The primary concern was that the dog attacked a chicken and, based on the story, supposedly killed a chicken or more. The details that resurfaced later, they were saying that dog was potentially dangerous to children or was attacking somebody and stuff like that. Those details were not in the original story, not in the book. They are added later. Maybe they were added later to just give, more context, or maybe it actually happens sometimes when people try to justify what they did. It's absolutely normal and natural for us humans. So we mostly gonna focus on the details that were given in the book, assuming that this is part of the real story. So first of all, let's talk about the puppy chasing chickens or killing the chickens. Is it normal for a puppy to chase chickens or any wildlife? Yes, it is. So if you're getting a puppy, you're actually primarily responsible for this puppy not to cause harms to other animals, not to scare some cats, not to scare some birds, wildlife, and so on. Puppies are usually playful creatures, so they like to chase things, they like to engage, and they don't necessarily know which things are okay to play with and which are not. And we as a pet parents, pet owners, pet guardians, supposed to create the environment where puppies don't get access to things. I understand this dog was 14 months old, which is considered like, oh, it's adulting. Maybe some people even consider it's an adult dog, but I have to say that for the first 2-3 years of their life, dogs are still developing and they still need to be supervised. Second, is it a big deal that the dog killed another live being? Yes and no. Technically, it's not good for you to let your dog, especially a puppy, kill another animal because they might like it and enjoy it, and then you're gonna have so much trouble getting them away from wildlife or from neighborhood cats and stuff like that. You can still train them not to chase the wildlife, but it's going to be extensive training. It's just easier to prevent things in the very beginning. If you're getting a puppy, you have the most amount of easy access to shaping your puppy in whatever you want them to be. Obviously, to a certain extent, because there is a breed, there is a temperament of the puppy, there is other things, but more or less you can shape them. But again, even if it happened, if your dog killed another live being, this is not a disaster. I feel like back in the day, or maybe still general public believes that if your animal attacked somebody or beat somebody or killed a small animal, this is the sign of them being vicious, ravenous creatures that needs to be put down. But that's not approach at all, I guess, in the modern time. Even if the dog attacked another human, there is still a lot that can be done for successfully rehabilitating this dog or creating a space where the dog is not dangerous to other people, or maybe even potentially rehoming the dog to the environment when they're not going to be dangerous to themselves and other people or other animals. So this is not a big deal. Later on, I will give you another example why it's not a big deal. Let's talk a little bit about aggression and biting, attacking in puppies. Can puppies be aggressive? Yes and no. Most of the time when we look at the puppy and we're like, oh my God, the puppy is biting my leg, or the puppy playing roughly, and the puppy is like this when they play. Hey! This is just a part of playful behavior. It's like nothing dangerous, and most of the time, in most of the cases, puppies are not really showing real aggression, really real aggression. Usually not. There are rare cases when it's part of their genetic problem, let's call it like this, when they can be genetically more predisposed to be aggressive, but usually this is not the case. Aggression doesn't come out of nowhere unless usually aggression is part of fear or bad experience, bad handling, and other things, like certain situations. The dog was put in the situation when they couldn't escape something and they decided to bite the handler. Those situations can happen, but just for a new puppy or new dog, it's quite rare. It can happen, but it's quite rare. When people tell me like, oh, my puppy is aggressive, let's say if it's my client, I usually ask lots of questions, and most of the time that's not a real aggression. Puppy play biting, puppy nipping you, like, I don't know, grabbing you by the collar. No, probably that would be a big puppy, or a very small person, probably like me. I'm very short. And it's a Great Dane puppy. Anyway, grabbing you by the sleeve or by the pants. This is usually just play biting, and those things should be addressed because some puppies don't grow out of it and they don't get like a proper handling, so not redirected, not told that there are more proper things to bite, nip, and rip. Either it was not addressed, that's why when the puppy is still like 1 year old and they're still like biting or biting hard when they're playing or when they're doing something. Sometimes when dogs get overly excited, they redirect into biting. That can happen too. I've seen it quite a lot. Yeah, so this can be like when the dog is very hyper, very aroused, they get very agitated, so they need to do something. It's almost like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself, so I'm gonna start jumping and biting. But it can be a case, but again, this can be addressed in most situations, and definitely that's not the reason to put down a young dog. Okay, let's talk a little bit about solutions, because I'm very long-winded and it's getting very long. This video is getting a little bit long. So what could be the solution? Let's say she's a person who has this puppy and the puppy kills the chicken, and it seems like, oh, like I can't keep this puppy because neighbors are gonna get mad. And in general, if you live in a farm situation, yeah, I guess this is quite normal that the farmer would try to rehome the dog. I guess some farmers would just put the dog down. I guess in certain areas it's a normal practice, but I would say for the modern times we live in, it's a little bit ridiculous. You can just rehome the puppy. At least like make an effort to do this, because if puppy is attacking chickens, if the puppy will be rehomed to somebody who lives in a city, I guess will be less of a problem. The second thing is, let's say this is not a farm situation when the dog roams free and attacks whatever. Let's say this is your personal dog and you have some chicken coop. You can actually do some training for the dog to be desensitized to the movement of chicken, to be desensitized to chasing chickens and wildlife. Obviously this training will require lots of effort from you, but this can be done, especially if it's your pet dog and you love them. Otherwise, yeah, you can rehome it, or let's say if you're afraid that the dog might harm some small animals, you can always teach the dog to wear muzzle. And let's say when you let the dog out in the backyard, just muzzle them. And obviously, when the dog is muzzled, you're supposed to supervise them, because they can, like, if they're running around free in the backyard, they can get, in trouble. Like, they can, for example, they try to go somewhere and get the muzzle gets stuck. So it's maybe not the perfect solution, but it can be a solution. Let's say while you're doing the training. I understand that general public, again, lots of people are a little bit not scared of muzzles, but we feel weird, because for us muzzle it's like something bad, something scary. For example, when I muzzle trained my dog, every time I put a muzzle on her, people would avoid us, which is sometimes helpful if you don't want people to approach you. But anyway, as a trainer, I can say that this is a great solution if you have a dog that has potential biting issues. Let's say it's a resource guarder, or you have two dogs and they're not getting along well and you're afraid this one dog gonna harass the other dog. Before you even address this with the training, or while you're addressing with the training, teaching the dog to wear muzzle, accept muzzle. Why I'm saying teach it, because you don't just slap the muzzle on the dog. You actually do a certain training that will make the dog comfortable being in the muzzle. The same how some dogs need to get used to be in a harness, to be in a collar, to be on leash, accustomed to the muzzle, just conditioned to wear it, enjoy it, and there is a certain training. I can leave some links below with instructions how to teach your dog to muzzle train. It's not difficult, just takes time, probably like 10 minutes a day, and after a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depends on your dog will accept muzzle without any problem. So they're not going to be afraid of it. Again, so what are the other steps? If you have a dog that is killing chickens or chasing some wildlife, or I don't know, showing some signs of aggression towards other animals or humans, your best bet is to find veterinary behaviorist. And again, I will leave the link down below. So if you're in America, there is an association of veterinary behaviorists, and you can see and find who is in your area. Unfortunately, this is expensive, and also usually there is a wait list, and there is always sometimes hard to find one in your area, but there are some that do online remote consultations. So the reason why for aggression cases it's good to go with the veterinary behaviorist, because all the information that I provided to you before, and even more than that, the veterinary behaviorist will explain to you, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate for a dog of a certain age, how big issue or not and the situation you're dealing with. In some cases, they will, do a wellness check. They will do maybe around some blood tests and stuff like that, because some of the aggression issues can be rooted in health problems. This is actually another good tip. If your dog was normal, let's call it like this, and then one day their behavior changed and they're more reactive, more sensitive, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're more barky, maybe they're more sensitive towards other dogs, any like sudden behavior change or something that's like not normal for your dog, the good thing is to go and do a vet check, because some health issues can be, in play. Like here in San Francisco Bay Area, veterinary behaviors charged around $400, $500, $600 for a visit, and this will include the health checkup. Some vets, for example, as PCA, they might accept some insurance. So if you have insurance or if you can get one, maybe consider that. I understand it's not for everyone. Me personally, I wouldn't probably be able to spend so much money, and I would probably try to go self-resolving route. That's why I probably became a dog trainer, because one day I just wanted to learn how to do it myself, how to train dogs. Please, can you please not bite me? Another option is to find a canine behaviorist or a dog trainer that can deal with behavior modification and certain situations. At least you get professional advice. Ideally, it's a trainer who uses positive reinforcement, force-free methods, so they don't use punishment and stuff like that, because usually it's not very helpful with reactivity or aggression. It's just going to make worse or redirect into other areas. If you can't afford hiring like a personal trainer, you can always look for online programs. There are people who offer online courses that can help you to identify your issues and learn certain exercises and do some training about that. Especially when the dog is only 1 year old, there is so much that can be done before shooting the dog. And let's go back a little bit again to the dog that killed the chicken, which sounds like something scary, like something super vicious, like a werewolfy type of story. I have a dog. We used to live in a very rural area, and my dog used to be semi-street dog. By semi-street dog, I mean that my dog would sleep in a house, but the gate was always open, and my dog was allowed to go in and out, and most of the time she would just hang out at the street, because she is a street dog. We lived in a completely different country. We lived in Bali, and this was absolutely normal for the dogs to just roam free. In her history, she killed multiple rats and little rodents. And even when we moved to California, she tried, and I think one time when we couldn't do anything about it, she actually chased a mole. And you would think like, oh my God, this dog will have no chance. This was before I was professional dog trainer. I was just training my own dog. But when we were deciding to get a bird, I understood that this is going to be a little bit dangerous to have a dog who tends to chase small animals and having a bird, especially since our bird is not caged most of the day. So he's just free-flighted. He's only caged when we are not at home or we cannot supervise him. So we had to do some training, but right now she can absolutely coexist with this bird. They can be close to each other, and obviously I will not leave them alone unattended, like free, but it can be done. Again, it's also done. I'll actually leave a link below. There is a good training by Simone Miller. It's called predation substitute training. So if your dog has any issues with wildlife, small animals, chasing squirrels, birds, you can do this training. I believe the training is online. Again, can all dogs be trained not to chase and kill a wildlife or birds when they already did so? Probably not. Then you will have to use management techniques. You will have to use muzzle. You will have to change the environment so they don't get access to those things. Maybe these dogs can never be off leash and they have to become pet dogs. Always on leash, always on the long line, but at least you can still keep your pet, the dog you supposedly love. One of the things that was mentioned somewhere around the story, that the dog is a working dog, which is hunting, and the idea was like, oh, this dog was acquired as a hunting dog. Anyway, it wasn't very good. It wasn't trainable. It wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So it's okay to shoot them because it's a working dog. It's not a pet. Again, this is usually not the case anymore. Even if it's a farm dog that's supposed to help like farmers to herd dogs, or maybe it's a rat terrier that's supposed to get rid of rodents. If the dog doesn't do the job, usually people try to just find a family who doesn't need a working dog, but they can still take care of this dog. And probably like one of the last pet peeves with me in this story, in one of the mentions, they said that I guess the dog was struggling in the different family. So I suppose this lady was the second owner, and she decided to take this dog to fix it. But then I guess she couldn't fix it, and so the only way was to shoot the dog. Again, this is quite important. If you are taking on a dog that has behavior issues, you better understand that you're getting yourself into certain trouble. If you're not a professional trainer, if you don't want to become a personal trainer for your dog, probably don't adopt a dog that has behavior issues. Besides being a professional dog trainer, I also volunteer with dogs and SPCA, and we have some dogs that are quite long residents in SPCA because they have behavior issues. They were adopted and then they were returned, surrendered because people couldn't deal with their behavior issues. This is important. It's important to understand if the dog has multiple behavior issues, this will require so much time and energy from you, as well as money, because maybe it's health related. You will have to do regular checkups. You might need expensive medication. You might need to create a certain management for the dog. You might not be able to live your regular lifestyle because now for example, like you need to hire somebody to dog sit your dog, but it can't be a regular person because your dog has issues. You need to hire a trainer, and that's very expensive and stuff like that. So, for example, one of the things I do walks for reactive dogs. And these people, if their dog wasn't reactive, they could hire somebody who's much cheaper as a walker, or they can even hire somebody to have a dog as part of the pack walk. But unfortunately, the dogs are reactive. They bark and lounge at other dogs, so they have to hire a dedicated person to walk this dog and pay much more. So you have to understand, if you're getting a dog with known behavior issues, I wouldn't say like, oh, don't get it. That's actually how people become professional dog trainers. They adopt a dog, the dog is in trouble, they start figuring out what to do for this dog, and eventually a couple of years later they're professional dog trainers helping other people. So that's quite normal. If you feel like this is something you always wanted to do, understand how animal behavior works, how dog training works, maybe that's a way for you. But as a first pet owner, I would not recommend having a dog with issues, because at some point you will be so frustrated with this dog that you will not have mental capacity or energy to, train this dog. Like some clients will probably spend months, or sometimes it can be more than a year, to help rehabilitate the dog with major behavior issues. And some clients, they will never get to have a dog that you can easily take to the restaurant, So it's a trouble. So it's a little bit a pet peeve of mine that we as humans, we take something because we think we're so good at it. Oh, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna resolve it, but then like we understand like, oh, I guess it was a little bit more than I could actually do. Oh, let's get rid of the problem by shooting the dog. Right now, for example, I'm working on rehabilitating this this baby that has had lots of behavior issues. It took almost a year for him to get rid of most of his issues, but not all. We're still dealing with it. And if I was doing this once again, getting a bird, I would probably not get a bird that has issues. But anyway, that's a different story for a different video. Okay, let's summarize the video. So if you have a situation when the dog is showing certain behavior problems, or they did something very scary, very inappropriate in your point of view, there are still lots of steps to do before putting the dog down. The step number 1, find a professional dog trainer or veterinary behaviorist, or maybe at least have a remote consultation and ask the person, who's professional, whether this case is really scary. Get a second opinion before making your own decision. Second, you can always rehome the dog with your relatives. Maybe like you live in a farmland, but there are relatives who lives in the city and will be glad to take your dog. At least this way the dog stays in the family if that is important for you. The third one, you can rehome the dog using rescues, especially SPCA. Now they have programs that they not only rehome the dogs, but they also do some training to help dogs with behavior issues. And even if it's the situation where you have to put the dog down, I guess the ethical way will be to hire a vet service where it can be at least ethically euthanized. Like at least the dog goes in a stress-free mode, not like by being, I assume, dragged to the back of the house and shot. And also it's quite harmful for your family members. I can't imagine being a kid whose mom shot the dog. I would probably never forgive my parents to do that. It's really, I think it's very bad for children to see this type of animal treatment, because then you give them the example how you can treat animals, and they will feel like the solution is just to shoot somebody in the face. That's probably not. Anyway, that's it. This is my opinion about this story. Macha says hi.